My question, I remember Ms. Lewis mentioned in the presentation earlier about future-proofing certain policies. Now, I'm not that familiar with the Computer Misuse Act, but if I can draw a scenario to you, this happened in Australia recently. A celebrity went down to Australia, needed their laptop to be repaired, carried it to an establishment. The person took out the hard drive, copied the person's pictures off of it, and as it turns out, the way their law was written, as long as the hard drive wasn't encrypted, is a free-for-all, and they couldn't sue the person. A big place like Australia. My question is concerning the Computer Misuse Act in Barbados. How current is it? Does it cover removable media, extended media? And as she said, are we in a position where we have to change it every 2 years?
Okay. The computer misuse is a 2005 piece of legislation. I think it's a 2005 piece of legislation. And while it might be far-reaching in terms of its scope, in terms of intent, from time to time it is useful that we look at what is happening within the international jurisdiction and the regional jurisdiction and update our legislation. And I believe that that process is one that, and I refer to nudging government, when we recognize that, yes, we have a report, the report sounds criminal, there is some issues that can be prosecuted, but because the legislation, as in any other piece of legislation, stops at a particular point, then it makes it harder to frame the prosecution the way that it ought to. And as a result, you know, within the legal context, it might not be useful to prosecute.
And just in comment on the question, it's an interesting question, but I think all lawyers are smart. We got the best lawyers in the world, right? And one of the things that they did with the Computer Misuse Act is reference experts. And experts in such a way, if you are a novice, some person that does not know, and take in good faith to an expert, your system or trusted, it's called trusted source. If your trusted source let you down, all laws are so broad, we can sue for anything, we can get you for anything. All right? So it's just, most of the time it's interpretation of the law, which is why the assistant said earlier that something might not be recognized in one aspect, but it is still punishable like fraud. The only problem is, I would say to that comment, is that it makes the other areas seem very sexy. Because if everything leads back to something that we may have in our laws before, it doesn't give any cybercrime time to the public in that sense. Okay. But yes, it would be punishable because that lady trusted an IT expert who betrayed that trust in that regard. Like a preacher, I mean, you know, you go and confess your things to the preacher and he lay it down, you know.
All right, thank you. Any further questions? We have a question here, please.
My question is sort of follow-up to that. The Computer Misuse Act, does it refer to, how does it define the term, for instance, computer? What if I use my phone instead of a computer? Does it cover that?
They define it as input-output. Yeah.
Okay.
Input output to on what?
Any operating system. So it looks at, for example, it doesn't define a computer as a mouse, keyboard, CPU unit. It says anything that execution is done. Sorry. It defines that anything that execution is done on. Actually, that was going to be my intervention earlier when we had the panel discussion. That how many of us in here have computers, and I'm sure that a few people raised their hand, but under here actually have mobile devices. They make no distinction. The only body that makes a distinction is customs. So if you have a cell phone, that's a smartphone, they're going to just call it a phone. But under the law, anything that has an operating system, and you can actually put input and get output, basically is considered a computer.
All right, thank you. Any other questions?
I think one of the interventions or one of the discussions I had during the break referred to our capacity in terms of resources, human resources, to meet the needs of, yes, we make you aware, we give you the education, we tell you about the offenses, do you have within the context of the force the capacity to respond, the capacity to prosecute people? And in responding, I look at the general situation in the force. Yes, we have 1,500 members or thereabout, and we have different station areas. So sometimes you have a report and you go to a generalist